Good afternoon, everyone. Ni hao ma. How are you? Hope everyone is in the best of health as we continue to our daily journey in life. My topic for this afternoon focused on the eclectic approach in the study of philosophy of education. Philosophy of education can refer to either the academic field of applied philosophy or to any of educational philosophies that promote a specific type or vision of education, and or which examine the definition, goals, and meaning of education. Education and philosophy are closely interrelated. If philosophy is a love of knowledge, then education is acquisition of knowledge. For a long time, education was regarded as a disciplinary process, and learning by attempt was important for students. After that, learner-centered education laid an emphasis on presenting education according to the learner's interests. Today, these two contradictory forms come to a compromise. Interest has been admitted as the fundamental truth for attraction of a child, of a learner, and once interest is genuinely created, they consistently demonstrate their interest, and even attempt would not be uninteresting to him. But neither is complete in itself, hence coordination between the two, philosophy and education, is necessary. The study of educational philosophy helps an educationalist, school administrators, and fellow educators to critically evaluate his own practices and make necessary changes in his practice. And that's the idea of reflective practice, learning through and from experience towards gaining insights or gaining new insights of self and practice. Reflection is a systematic reviewing process for all teachers, which allows us to make links from one experience to the next, making sure our students make maximum progress. On the other way around, philosophy has the potential for provoking revolutionary changes, revises and rejects some of our beliefs, develops analytical and logical skills, as well as reasoning. Educational philosophy clarifies concepts and analyzes propositions, beliefs, and theories of education. A philosophy vision is essential to understand the new trends in the educational systems, especially the contemporary educational movements. Philosophical vision is the most important strategy for achieving enduring success in business in any educational institution. Having a vision helps us possess a clear vision of where we are going as an organization, as a person. Vision is the journey and attainment of our goals. It closes the gap of where and who we are from who we want to become when we reach our fullest potential. To make it easier to understand what vision is, try closing your eyes and imagine the look and feel of your world. When your energy and efforts have served their ultimate purpose, this is your vision. Your vision, our vision. Your vision doesn't need to be complicated or earth-shattering. In fact, the simpler it is, the more compelling it can be. Furthermore, When it comes to eclecticism, eclecticism has been derived from the verb root elect. Elect means to choose or pick up. The good ideas, concepts, and principles from various schools of thought have been chosen, picked up, and blended together to make a complete philosophy. Thus, eclecticism is a philosophy of choice. Eclecticism is nothing but fusion of knowledge from all sources. It is a peculiar type of educational philosophy which combines all good ideas and principles from various philosophies. Eclecticism is a conceptual approach that does not hold rigidly to a single paradigm or set of assumptions, but instead draws upon multiple theories, styles, or ideas to gain complementary insights into a subject or applies different theories in particular cases. It can sometimes seem inelegant or lacking in simplicity, and eclectics are sometimes criticized for lack of consistency in their thinking. It is, however, common in many fields of study. To illustrate this approach, consider this eclectic interior design. Eclectic interior design is a style that artfully mixes elements of multiple designs, styles into one space. It involves an informal mix of furnishings and decors and pulls from a wide variety of styles. Often, eclectic decors combines bright colors and patterns and mixes in unexpected elements to come up with a very amazing, beautiful design. Same as well in education. An eclectic approach is one that seeks to combine the best elements of different schools of philosophy. The fusion or synthesis of diverse philosophies to answer educational enigmas is known as eclectic tendency in education. But why need an eclectic approach in education? We all know we live in an era where dogmatic adherence to a particular philosophy is foolish and is quite harmful. The world is changing very fast. Values are changing rapidly. We require a dynamic outlook and mental flexibility to have an all-around adjustments and optimal development. No philosophy contributes to all aspects of education. Idealism based on spirituality, pragmatism, naturalism based on materialism. Pragmatism is based between the two. While idealism is famous for its high and lofty aims of education, pragmatism is famous for its brilliant principles and curriculum, naturalism for its method of education. No philosophy is full-fledged to provide all things, but we want an integral education for complete living. If we synthesize all good ideas and principles with the best materials of all these philosophies, we have to adopt an eclectic approach by harmonizing the conflicting theories and blend them together. We have to find unity and diversities through eclectic approach. Due to eclectic tendency, we find in modern education the influence of all the philosophies, the tendencies of education. According to his doctrine of naturalism, Rousseau emphasized child-centered education. In modern education, also child is developed according to his nature. Pestalozzi has stated that education is the development of the inherent capacities of a child, and as such, education should develop to the future extent the physical, mental, and moral capacities of a child. After Pestalozzi, Herbart declared moral character as an aim of education and emphasizing curriculum construction, advocated 5 formal steps of teaching. The third protagonist of psychological tendency, Froebel, insisted that educational process should follow the laws of nature, and considering the child's nature as good, emphasized that education should allow complete development of a child through self-activity. He argued for a free and unfettered environment for the development of the child and inculcation of sociability. After the advent of psychological tendency, the stage was occupied by scientific tendency. Herbert Spencer insisted that for complete living, scientific subjects should occupy a prominent place in the curriculum. He tried to correlate education with actual life and uphold the importance of individualism. But we see the sociological tendency in education develop out of scientific tendency. According to sociological tendency, education is required to create such socially citizens who do not prove parasite on others, but lead a life of self-reliance. For this purpose, emphasis for vocational, technical, and universal education began to begin. Eclectic tendency has also exercised its influence in the solution of those problems, which seem at one time very complex and insoluble. This tendency has brought about a synthesis between the individual and social arms. Both the aims are not contradictory but complementary and mutually contributory. Another problem to be tackled in the field of education has been of interest and efforts. In ancient times, there ruled the disciplinary concept of education, which upheld the use of efforts in utter disregard of the child's interest. Hence, subjects were given importance with a view to the difficulty and efforts of children to learn them. Due to eclectic tendency, both these factors, interest and efforts, are brought together to form a harmonious synthesis of the two, to emphasize that a child needs the use of both the interest as well as the efforts for his fullest development. The third problem is of freedom and discipline. The burning question had been how much freedom and how much discipline should be provided and enforced. Eclectic tendency has solved this problem quite satisfactorily. Today, freedom and discipline stand integrated as one concept, as two sides of the same coin. Today, the hard, rigid, and impressionistic concept of discipline stands discredited and through impressionistic and sublimation processes. Self-reliance, obedience, self-confidence, self-learning, and managing are inculcated in children. And this leads to self-discipline. Today, freedom means all conducive opportunities for self-development and allowing the same opportunities to others as well. And this is possible when each individual adheres to self-discipline and allows others the same rights for self-development through self-efforts, self-experiences, and self-investigation for new truths. In the picture, the freedom to achieve our greatest potential in life depends on self-discipline. Someone once said, in order to be free to sail the seven seas, you must make yourself a slave to the compass. This is because every freedom has a corresponding bondage, and every bondage has a corresponding freedom. You can be free from the toothbrush, but a slave to cavities. Or you can be a slave to the toothbrush and free from cavities. But you cannot be free from the toothbrush and free from cavities. That kind of absolute freedom doesn't exist because all actions have consequences. Therefore, self-discipline is the key to personal freedom. Admittedly, it seems backwards. Discipline equals freedom, but much in the Bible seems backwards. To save your life, you must lose it. To be first, you must be last. To receive, you must give. So it is consistent with the backwardness of what we find in the Bible, that freedom comes only through self-discipline. This truth is important to everyone for many reasons, but it is especially important to the Christian if we are to become God's best version of ourselves. And so with this modern progressive education contains all the essential merits of all the philosophies and tendencies of education. The credits of this synthesis and unified integration goes to eclectic tendency. Philosophy of life has a powerful impact on education because eclectic tendencies gaining wider appreciation and acceptance in the life of an individual today. Therefore, the influence of this tendency on education is natural. It reflects the harmonious synthesis of all those dynamic ideas and principles. Under the influence of eclectic tendency, all the previous ideologies and tendencies are influencing the concept, the following aspects of education: leadership, aim of education, teaching materials, methods of teaching, discipline, teachers training, secular education, and school settings. The aim of modern education has become individual progress and development and social service. And to develop the child intellectually through the variety of learning styles, principles, and ideologies. We have seen in the philosophy of none that there is no difference between individual and universal progress. Here comes the role of eclectic tendency. If we look into Professor Horn's definition, this tendency becomes quite evident. According to him, education is a high adjustment of a physically and intellectually developed conscious individual to his intellectual, emotional, and volitional environment. In this definition, perfect fusion of psychological, scientific, and sociological tendencies. Teaching material is no more an important matter, the earning of which should be compulsory for students, as it is a truth or combination of truths. Modern teaching material is a brief form of civilization and a record of standards of progress and values of civilization. The civilization of one period cannot be suitable to another period. Therefore, it would have to be changed in the basis of needs and changes. Teaching material is helping the students to familiarize themselves with life, as teaching is the preparation of life. However, according to John Dewey, education is not just a preparation of life, but it is life itself. Therefore, the process of knowing life would remain changing. Methods of teaching is used in order to experiment this material of civilization on the child and to bring desirable changes. This method should be used naturally by the teacher. The knowledge of children, knowledge of modern interests and problems, suppressing the rigid methods of teaching, and taking the broader meaning of teaching methods. All these are symbolical of a teacher's ability. Therefore, a teacher should have a knowledge of every method. The burden of the modern teacher has increased because he has to apply new methods with a view to the children's knowledge for the changing age and the progress of the society. Regarding the method of teaching, the kernel of all philosophy is method according to circumstances, taking in view the interest of a child. Their emphasis is on motivating instruction, which is the result of the curriculum growing out of the present experiences of children. They have assigned a place for drill and concede to supreme importance of freedom, both as an end and as a means to achieve the end. Among method, they have special advocacy for problem solving, which they believe is on consonance with life's demands. Importance of direct experience is recognized by lending their support to playway and learning by doing. This eclectic tendency mentioned is visible not only in the field of education but in every field of education. This tendency is carrying us to a good age where we would be able to establish new ideas, new values, and standards over narrow and corrupt feelings. With regards to discipline, none of the schools of the philosophy supports Priscianism. Freedom or free discipline is their keyword. All the philosophers wish the mature children to play their part in making decisions about the affairs of the school. This should not be pushed around against their consent. Discipline through knowledge and knowledge through experience is the undercurrent of all educational philosophies. The teacher's role as a friend, guide, philosopher, the director of the class, arranger of the experiences of the child, etc., is the prominent in modern educational scene. Teaching is not easy. In many educational systems, a substantial portion of teachers do not adequately master the material they are expected to teach, nor they do master the pedagogical strategies for effectively conveying this material to the students. The teachers' training and coaching aims to fill these gaps so that teachers will be better equipped to cultivate students' learning. Under the influence of eclectic tendency, more and more teachers training institutions are being opened to provide training to teachers for various grades and levels of education. In ancient and medieval times, provision of education was made by religious institutions. But under the influence of eclectic tendency, modern education has broken off from religious bonds and has become material and worldly. Under the influence of sociological tendency, the function of school is to prepare dynamic citizens to participate in social activities successfully. As such, school is now regarded as a miniature society to develop dynamic, enterprising, and resourceful citizens. This makes it crystal clear that modern education has drawn from all the tendencies, namely psychological, scientific, and sociological, to a very great extent, and this process of synthesizing and gainfully imbibing is known as eclectic tendency. It is the nature of man that he likes change. He wants new and novel ways in every field of work. The same true in the case with learning process. Learners always like something new and exciting. If learner has a variety of choice or choices to learn, it will help them develop self-interest and be responsive in the classroom discussion. Second, it offers multiple opportunities to students to develop their own skills. Hence, we have a diverse learner susceptible to opportunities to learn and develop their own skills, abilities, and potential. The eclectic approach allows our learners to acquire knowledge and skills through a different teaching style that will best suit their taste and actively have the chance to participate in class discussion. And this approach is broad and may include every kind of learning activity and saves learner from monotony. This approach eliminates boredom in the classroom by integrating a various set of activities and not being stuck in a single concept of strategy. It is more appropriate for preschool learning but not less beneficial in the classroom. It is helpful in all kinds of skills, in stimulating a creative environment and gives confidence to the learners. In this approach, children discovers and instill good ways of learning. Above all, this approach give a chance to our common sense to mold and shape our method according to the circumstances and available materials of teaching aids or teaching aids. There may be gaps in learning. If we are frequently switching curriculum, this approach can lack discipline, learning, and allow for laziness. Without grabbing to one approach, curriculum choices and overall directions can be confusing and overwhelming. So to conclude this talk, the conception of education today is very broad, and that our educational thinking in its totality has been affected not by single philosophical thought or tendency, but by the cumulative experience of past generation in the field of education. Our educational ideals and practices may consequently be traced to various sources, all of which have been harmoniously blended to determine the present-day educational principles and practices. And that whatever philosophical approaches or tendencies we have adopted, we have to see to it as teachers that our students are learning. Take note that eclectic approach taught us the importance of understanding students' needs and interest. Understanding your students' interest will help us to provide them with quality learning opportunities. And by giving them the opportunity to explore areas they are interested in, for example, the environment, they will be more likely to engage in the learning process. It is important not to assume that just because a student excels at a particular subject, sport, or creative endeavor, then that is his passion. Let us give our students time and opportunities to explore their interests and to discover what they truly love to do, so they can develop their knowledge and skills needed to succeed in the areas they are passionate about. And so, thank you for listening. That's all for now. Happy New Year, everyone.